My son Tyler passed away at 29 years young on May 27th, 2022. I love talking about my son. When he was little, his dad and I was young. I was only 17. I graduated high school on time, and he was 6 months old in the audience. I was very proud of that. Me and his dad didn't stay together. We split up about a year after he was born, but his dad stayed in his life. He was, a great dad. But because of that, that did cause, some anger issues with my son. With most kids, they want their mom and dad to stay together. But he was very active, loved playing sports. He tried football, he tried basketball, but baseball was his thing. So he played up and through to high school. And he loved being a big brother. He has little siblings, and he just loved being a big brother. He was a great student. He was a good kid. He really was. He was just a good kid. He liked to go out and play, ride his bike and throw ball and, do all the boy stuff, but he didn't like to have his hands dirty. He didn't like to be dirty. If he got his hands dirty, he had to clean his hands. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. But he was really a fun kid. Tyler was just, everybody loved him. His teachers loved him. He was just awesome. He was a great son and a great big brother. When he got older, I would say around 21, he came back home to live with me. And he was going through a drinking alcohol phase. So when I noticed it, I remember that the day I talked to him, he was sitting in front of the TV in the living room. He was playing one of his, Xbox games or something. And I looked at him and I said, okay, you've got 4 weeks to get yourself together and do something productive with your life because you deserve that, or you have to leave. So he chose on his own to call a place called Pathways, and he went to Pathways, and he loved it. And he was so proud because he was alcohol-free. His new drug was water bottles, and he was so proud to walk around with his friends and show his water bottle, so he'd be a designated driver for his friends. It was a very proud moment for him. And he did well, and then he, fell in love for the first time. And that kind of went back and forth, and depression, I think, started kicking in more when he was having relationship problems. And then he ended up getting his own place. He bought his own house. And he went downhill from there with the drinking. The doctors wouldn't prescribe him anxiety medicine, but they prescribed him trazodone, which will knock you out while you're, and drinking on top of that was a disaster waiting to happen. So when he was living in his own home, he was drinking, taking trazodone, and probably Xanax and whatever else. And he had some hardships. He had a gun. He had a registered gun. He'd like to go shoot with one of his grandfathers at the shooting range. But one of his tough times that he had with his depression, and he was self-medicating, he took his gun and was shooting his house up on the inside. And he ended up getting an emergency psych evaluation. Bullets went through his front door, and there was, houses across the street. So someone could have been hurt or killed. The hospital released him after an hour or two. And then 7 days before he passed away, May 20th, he went to court, and he had a really good attorney, and he walked out with no consequences. None whatsoever. No consequences at all. And not to sound like a cold mom, because we were very close, but he knew I was the type of mom that you do something like that could hurt someone else or put someone else's life in jeopardy. You have to, there's consequences for your actions. So I was very disappointed that I didn't want him to go to jail, but he should have had some kind of consequences. And he didn't. And then 7 days later, he was gone. On May 27th, it was around 2 p.m., I got a phone call from his stepmother that Tyler was gone. Where did he go? What do you mean he's gone? And then, she started crying, and I don't even remember anything else that she said. I just remember throwing my phone and falling into my youngest son, David's arms on the floor. And then I drove to their house because he was at his dad's. And I drove there and thinking I have to hurry up and get there because he's probably at the hospital. Got there, and my daughter was there, and the police officers were there, and they weren't going to let me go inside at first, and I demanded I wanted to see my son. And they let me go upstairs where he was in his room and his dad's. I couldn't touch him, but I could, see him. And he was just sitting actually in a chair like this with no arms on it, with his head all the way back and his hands in his lap with his phone. And I couldn't understand. It wasn't really hitting me that it was my son there. And then we went downstairs for a bit, and they brought him down, and they let me spend some time with him. But he was in a body bag. But the thing that was it was just so, I don't know what the word is, but his eyes were wide open. And he had the most beautiful, everyone said he had the most beautiful eyes. And he did, he had these big, beautiful hazel eyes, and they were wide open. And that's the last time I got to see him. And I had to watch him roll him into a van. And it was just awful. And I don't want other parents to have to go through that anymore. And since then, everything's just fallen apart in my family. Sadly, death causes a lot of problems. And then the first few months or so after he passed, I really don't remember much of it. But then I started self-medicating. I didn't want to feel any pain. I really didn't. I didn't know how to deal with it. I just pretended that he was on vacation and he'd be coming back. And I started drinking. And I was drinking, and then I started drinking more and more. And then one day I just said, I can't do this. I have to feel the pain, or I'm never going to be able to help anybody or do anything. So just one day I just said, I got to feel the pain. So I've been feeling the pain, and it's not easy. It's not easy to feel the pain. The other day I wanted to have a drink. I'm like, I just want to drink. I just want to drink this pain away. But I can't do that. I've had quite a few people say, well, it's your son's fault that he's dead. He chose to take that pill. And when my son first passed, I probably would have responded with a very angry comment about that. But I will say, even though he had depression and anxiety, my son was scared to death. He didn't want to die. I mean, we've had conversations, and because he was very open with me, and he didn't want to die. That's why he felt safe when he was getting the Xanax from his friend at work, because it was a prescription. But that being said, my son still made a choice. I don't believe that he deserved to die because he made a bad choice. I make bad choices still. I think we all are guilty of, making mistakes and bad choices sometimes, but it doesn't mean we deserve to die. But what was unique, I think, about my son at his age, and this is something I'm really blessed for about my son, because in his 20s, he worked a night shift at Northrop Grumman, so he was off of work every other Friday, and he came to my home with me and his siblings, David and Raquel, and my granddaughter, his niece, Dakota, my mom, and my sister. and we all got together and we had sleepovers at my house. You know, I talked to so many parents, and he was 29. You know, we did that for a couple years. So it was like, I was so blessed that my almost 30-year-old son wanted to spend his weekends with his family and just do silly stuff. We'd play board games or, that really funny card game, and watch TV and just be silly and hang out. That's just who he was. But I mean, it just goes to show, he might have had an addiction and mental health issues, but he loved his family. You know, he loved being with his family. It's really sad, and I don't want other parents. There's going to be more parents like me sitting in this chair, and I just don't want more parents to lose their children to this. It's just god awful. What's really sad, I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, and I remember growing up when I was in elementary school. Oh, we were so excited at lunchtime because, recess was right after lunch. So that was our favorite part of the day. But one of the things was being able to share, I'll trade you your snack for mine. And I have fear now because of all of the things that are happening in our world. You hear about the kids that brought, candy to school and it was in a baggie that had fentanyl residue. I'm paranoid for not just my grandchild, but for all children. It's a scary world that we're living in. And, to honor my son, I have to do everything I possibly can to prevent anyone from going down the path that he went down. None of these drugs are ever going to go away 100%. That's not going to happen. So yes, a lot of people would talk about the border and this and that, and all those things are true. We do need, help at the border, but I want to focus on protecting and preventing the youth, especially, from becoming victims to this drug poisoning crisis. So I have sat at the Board of Education in Anne Arundel County and given my presentation. I have stood before the Maryland State Department of Education and given my presentation. There is no excuse whatsoever, and there should be no hesitation whatsoever to have visual drug poison awareness in every single school in every single state. Of course, my state I'm fighting for is Maryland because that's where I live. And my suggestion is at least have one presentation with a parent and maybe, a friend from the DEA or a police officer, and the beginning of the year and the end of the school year. The schools do a lot of other things I think that are important, like, they're teaching children how to be respectful of gender identity. That is very important to people. And I respect everyone's feelings and thoughts and all that stuff. Well, teachers have too much on them already as it is. I think teachers have turned into parents, unfortunately. But I want the students to be given the chance to know what is going on and what is out there. Because if they're not taught, they don't know. Yes, it's a parent's responsibility. It is. But a lot of parents are unaware of what's happening, just like I was until my son passed. And I'm educated. I'm a very smart, intelligent person. But it took my son's death for me to know what's going on in the world. I don't want other parents to be like me. I want to get in those schools and show these kids what's really happening so they can live and be successful and have lives that they deserve. So yeah, I'm that angry parent, and yes, a lot of, people don't like my style sometimes because I'm gentle and I'm emotional, but at the same time, I want what I want for these children. And I don't stop until I get it done.